All right. No getting around that. Epic disaster. However, what do you do with it from here on out? That's the question now. Miami's still 4-1. They've got North Carolina on the road, and the season still stands in front of them. Talking Canes with all of you here, the voice of college football. This is what we do on Wednesday night. We got one of the very best, Cam Underwood, State of the U. He breaks it down for you. And we hope that you will go out there and spread the word on social media and otherwise letting people know that we are here talking Miami football with all of you. Cam, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. Life is good. Work is good. Personal life is good. Miami Hurricanes football on Saturday night, however, not so great.
I was checking in on that game. There were other better games throughout the evening to be watching first and foremost. But then when one or two of those got out of hand, then I moved that game to like the second or third screen, whatever the case might be. But I was setting up here after the Notre Dame, Louisville, and whatever the other primetime game on the networks was. And I had pulled up the scoreboard and I saw click 23-20, 2 seconds left. And it's like, wow, something must have happened, but I had no idea what the sequence of decisions that were led to that at that point. And then I got to say, at some point on Sunday, I looked at some of your work on State of the U, and I haven't seen that many expletives and that many exclamation points following, understandably, in a long time.
Yeah, something happened is like the understatement of a lifetime when you look at that. And I am still actively mad. The ACC came out today or the referees, supervisor, of course, always, it's like the thin blue line with the police union. They're always going to stay rank and file. Oh, it was the right call. You're a goddamn lie. Like, just there's video and picture evidence, like still pictures and video that like Donald Chaney was down. I'm not gonna say he didn't fumble. Like that was what Mike Schiffman, I believe, wrote that piece on our website that he didn't fumble. It ended up he lost the ball. Like yeah, but like he was down. And like again, y'all know I'm not a lifelong Miami Hurricanes fan. I came to this when I came to the U in 2000, right? But I know my history. This is Cleveland Gary in 1988 at Notre Dame. He was down completely and totally. Like, there's no question about it, right? Except for when you're covering for some malfeasance of somebody else. Also, the line judge who made that call was on the same crew in 2015 at Duke that called Miami for an ACC record number of penalties. Look that up. That was the return game when they called a literal record number of penalties, and then Miami had that return to win the game, which was justice because and Duke fans are coming, oh, cry about like go back and watch that entire game. The calls that were made, like honestly and truly, like there should have been an investigation, and that crew got suspended for games, multiple, after everything. And everyone's like, oh, it's a return. Look at everything else. Get out of my face. Anyways. Excuse me, all of that to say, I've never been so mad after a game. And even in the press box, saying, why are they not kneeling it? Why are they not kneeling it? Why are they not kneeling it? And y'all know Brandon O'Doy, a friend of mine, also has his own outlet, Football Hotbed. He does all kinds of great stuff across the board, high school stuff, does like camp tours and whatnot. And he sits next to me in the press box. Like that's we know where our seats are. I have seat number 5 from the right, 2 seats down, like a seat in between. Then there's Brandon, couple seats down, Brian the Beast London further down in our row. Like that's been in like the third row of the third section of the press box. That's been our seating arrangement for years. Like we all know this, right? And he's finishing his gamer. I have a tweet up of Miami survives, and I look up and I see the ball on the ground. And in a working press box, you cannot cheer, And I literally go, oh! And like I grab his shoulder, and he's like, "Bro, what?" And I'm like, oh! I'm outside of my mind. Like, it was just, and we were sitting up there doing the math. Like, okay, like we just got to get to under 40 seconds, take a knee, survive in advance, win your clunkers, all of those kind of things. And like, okay, well, they're in shotgun. They do a lot out of the shotgun, so maybe they're gonna, and like a lot of teams still take the victory formation knee out of shotgun. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I would like it if they're under center, but they're not. They're still gonna do the right thing, and I like never in my life. And then, behind that, you have, I think it was Daryl Porter jumping to tip a ball away from a receiver. Shout out to Haynes King for the best pass of his life. It wasn't the touchdown pass. It was the pass up the left sideline. That one, best pass he's ever thrown. And then, I mean, look, call a spade a spade. All-American Cam Kinchins bid on a pump fake, double move, got beat. That's 100% on him for the on-the-field play, on the touchdown, on the, the 44-yard touchdown that Christian Leary scored. You cannot slice it any other way. Plain and simple, Cam Kinchins blew the coverage. I mean, in that situation, you're always taught play deep is the deepest. Hell, when they pulled that double move and he was within arm's reach, pants him, tackle him, whatever, take the 15 yards, give him another play, whatever. Didn't do that, gave that up. That's 100% like the active demonstrable work product on the field. That is on Cam Kinchins for blowing that. Full stop. Also, as well, in addition, he should have never been in that situation. The game should have been over. We should have been on our way to interviews already, right? Two things can be true, right? And I just, like, honestly, so I wrote first on Saturday night before I left the stadium at 2:30 in the morning because there was just a bunch of journalists up there. And we were just all talking with each other, like, what in the... I mean, I'm a blogger, whatever, but I was talking to other full-time journalists. And we're just up there like, what in the hell did we just see? And the first thing that I wrote, because it came to me because I had tweeted it earlier in the week. Mark, do you know the last time that Miami won a game after a bye week?
I read this on one of your columns. It was... if you take into account the COVID year, there's a run of 11 consecutive, correct?
That is correct.
Yes.
It is since the Miami last won a game after a bye in 2016 against Georgia Tech. Now, and like I wrote it up on the website, guys, go and look at it. I did the math. There was an extended break during the COVID season because games got canceled and things like that. I'm not counting that. If you want to, then that's the one, and that was still in 2020, right? But we're talking 2 coaching regimes ago. Mark Richt's second year is the last time that Miami won after a bowl game.
First year, right? 16?
15 was his first year, wasn't it?
I thought 16 was. 9-4, beat West Virginia.
Yeah. So yeah, Mark Richt's first year. Excuse me, even on that. But yeah, like that was the last time that we won after a bowl game or after a bye week. And you look it up. Now, I did include bowl games in there as well because there's extended breaks for preparation and everything. But like that was it, and it was horrible. It was atrocious. I mean, Tyler Van Dyke with these interceptions, literally, I called that seam route interception like before the throw and said, well, okay, you're going to throw it up the seam to X or whatever. And if you go back and watch that play, there were 3 Georgia Tech defenders between the quarterback and the receiver because his defender, like when X did like a little stutter go, that his defender now is playing intentional trail technique, right? The other defender on the same side of the field is looking, and so he comes over, and if you watch the entire play, the backside safety is not playing too high. He's watching Tyler and saying, please throw that and let me go get it. Please. Whoever's over here on my, on the boundary side of where I am, don't care. P.S. By the way, it was Jacoby George and he's butt naked wide open for a touchdown, by the way. But they're not even paying attention. They're saying, we're 7. I dare and defy you to throw the ball. And then he was like, okay, I'm going to go get that, right? The smash route, the high-low read, where I've been talking about and calling for them to call that, because in 21, Tyler was surgical on that. You look one way, and it could be left or right, but you have a half-field read, not even a half-field, you have a one-way read. And if the cornerback sinks to the flag, you throw the curl in front of it. If he jumps the curl, you throw the flag behind it. It's the easiest thing. You're always right. It's option football, right? Just in a passing situation. Which way are you going to go? And the cornerback sat there and middled it, and he's like, because he's watched film and been coached, which is terrible, by the way, because they got blown out by Georgia Tech, or sorry, excuse me, Bowling Green the week before, right? But he knew that Tyler wants to throw the flag, right? So if I just stay flat-footed, not committal, right? I'm going to middle it. I'm going to stay flat-footed, and then he's going to wind up. I'm going to go get that, because he's not going to throw the check down, right? The other one, they said it was an option route, and the receiver ran the wrong route, and the ball was 3 people inside of where the receiver ran the curl. So fine. But, like, you know, when Shannon Dawson came up to his presser on Monday, he was like, yeah, the interceptions are not on Tyler. And I was like, which one? Okay, the last one. Cool. But the other 2, you know, he's throwing them directly to defenders not wearing all black, which is what we wore that night. And I kind of, you know, these special jersey nights don't really go our way. But it was just so much. It was just so much, and it was so bad. Like, I mean, I still got, because I do it every week, I leave the statistics up, right? 454 yards of offense for Miami. Now, in the end, Georgia Tech had 250, but
take off 75.
Take off 75, right, for the last, or 74 for the last drive. So they had 107, you know, like whatever, 176 for the entire game. And all of a sudden, in 2 plays, they get a quarter of that. So now all of a sudden they're up to 250, but that wasn't really what that was, because the defense was, you know, smash mouth, you know, getting them all day. But they have all these short fields because you keep turning the ball over 5 goddamn times, you know? And it was just like, oh, it was so much. And like, you're trying to get Donald Chaney 100 yards on that last carry.
Who's confirmed that?
See, they want to, and look, they got to say no. They have to say no, right? Looking at this box score and did the math. He had 101 gained, -2 on that drive on the earlier play. So he was sitting at 99 cumulative, right? Guy who's battled his way back. I've been talking about Donald Chaney for 4 years. You know what I mean? He's had all these injuries and everything. This is a great homegrown guy. I was just at Homestead Senior High School, saw his father, Donald Chaney, is in the Hall of Fame there at that school, where his picture is up and everything. So he's, you know, from the crib and everything. You want to give him that, right? And he gains 4 yards, but to what end? Because in the end, he lost the ball. He was already down, ACC reps, whatever. But yeah, and then it's just like every play, it's just like, okay, you're gonna knock that. Oh, he caught that at the sideline, and then it just, you know, it was a comedy of errors, and it was entirely self-inflicted, and that's the infuriating part, right? Infuriating part is just, regardless of all of that, like all of that taken into consideration. 5 turnovers, not being able to finish drives in the end zone, having a touchdown come off the board on a holding penalty that was questionable at best on the Henry Parrish touchdown run. You know, all of these things, you overcame all of that, and then with the stupidity of Cristobal and company, right, undid all of the work that was done to overcome the negative performance. And look, you know, I get that they want to move on and everything, but you still got to answer for that. Shannon Dawson, you know, he came in. Well, I'll go back. And I'm going to wrap this up in a little bit because I know that I'm rambling because my brain is still all over the place because there's so much to say. Mario Cristobal after the game was not committal to taking ownership. I know people want to say, oh, well, I saw this video clip. With all due respect to everybody there, I was in the motherfucking room. So don't tell me what he said, right? I was there, 3rd row on the aisle, staring at him, right? In person. And it was, well, you know, we did this, and then, well, you know, he throws Donald Chaney under the bus, says, you know, well, We talked about when we coached 2 hands on the ball. And what the fuck did you just say to me? Right? And then like everybody's head is everybody in the rooms. So, and you mentioned getting a first down. Was that a consideration on 3rd and 10 with 33 seconds left when all you need to do is take a knee and go shake hands? You know, but go back and watch the video again from Saturday night. He eventually, after multiple follow-up questions, got to it. It was the wrong call. Should have taken a knee. But there was a journey before you got there. Now, on Monday, on the Joe Rose show, and then again in his presser, he had time to think about the optics and say, I have to come out very strongly and say, made the wrong call, whatever. Now, you did the same damn thing in Oregon in 2018, and I didn't bring that up because I couldn't find a professional way to say it. Like I am in my emotions. I was not in a place where, and I saw that tweet from Chris Vanini where he was like, oh, he did this same thing before, and I'm still livid, and that's why I didn't. And I've asked questions before and things. That's why I chose not to, because I'm still not in a space for that, right? So that happens. Monday, Shannon Dawson says, I made the call. You got to live with it. Okay, coach. So follow up to that. What's the process, right? Because, was there conversation in the headset? Was there any dissension? Was there anyone saying, hey, we need to, he said, well, I'm just going to cut it off there. We're not going to talk about what's happening on the headset. So nobody. There's video of Alex Mirabal. I know he's 5'3", so maybe Shannon Dawson was looking over him, but like he's on the sideline saying, "Yo, hey, Shannon, hey," trying to get his attention. You didn't see him say kneel the ball, but I mean, as the conversation is going on and he has a headset, he's like, hey, right? And it's so asinine that we have to have this goddamn conversation, and that you undo all of the work. You lose a game that you had no business losing. Now you're behind the 8 ball because there's 3 undefeated teams in the conference, and you're not one of them because you lose to the dregs of the earth who got boat raced by motherfucking Bowling Green the week before, right? And now you had to deal with that. And I mean, I think there's a good chance that Georgia Tech beats you twice when you go and lose to Carolina this week, right? It's so infuriating, and just like not owning it for 48 hours because it didn't happen. It was kind of, well, yeah, I guess we did the wrong thing on Saturday. It wasn't until Monday that he really said what needed to be said. But why in God's name do we have to say this? Why is this team not undefeated? Because you made a dumbass decision. That's why. Periodpointblank.com in the story. Like, it's just, and again, Donald Chaney was down. They called it a fumble. They reviewed it, called it a fumble, and then they covered for each other because that's what they do with the referees today. Cam Kinchins, did you blow that coverage? Yes, you did. Are you first team All-American? 100%. But both teams, all these things can be the same or can be true at the same time. But I thought that Miami was going to still lose a game that they should not have this year. Not like this and not to this team. Like, this is all the goodwill that Mario had done in my mind this year. Undo, erase, delete, get rid of it. Especially in terms of the win-loss record, because you get one that you probably didn't think you were going to get earlier in week 2 against Texas A&M, and then you give it right the fuck back. I'm so goddamn mad.
And so, yes, to your last point, if you would have asked most college football fans, not necessarily Miami fans, college football fans, what is Miami's record going to be after 5 games? I would have said, they could be 5-0, probably 4-1. The Texas A&M game would have been the one that everyone would have earmarked. However, absolutely, what hurts more is the ACC race. This is a more important game, even though people look at Texas A&M because of the brand, that's a big game. This is actually a more important game and a more important loss and a more impactful loss. It's in the absolutely, ACC with the other 3 teams, as you just mentioned, undefeated. Now, in terms of Mario's explanation / excuse, here's my thought. I will never accuse a person of lying if I have no way to prove that they lied or are not telling the truth.
Okay.
unless they have this long, long history of lying. And then I would say, okay, even though I can't prove this one, look at the evidence. So I was trying to determine, okay, if he is in fact telling the truth, then he is telling us that he was folding his arms on the sideline as the head coach and being passive, not being intentional, not being assertive to say, hey, kneel the ball. So if he's being truthful about it, then that's what we can accuse him of being. He is the head coach making $1 zillion a year, and he is not even calling plays on either side of the ball. His job is to manage the game.
And managed it straight into a loss. And then said, oh, I should have stepped in. We should have called a timeout to recalibrate. Recalibrate what? They just took their last timeout. So you were coming off of a timeout, right? What needs recalibrating? We've gotten to the end of the game. We find some way to win said game that by all rights, I mean, like, you're talking 500 yards of offense basically to 175 until that last drive. It would have been more without the 5 damn turnovers. I mean, like, this was a game that Miami dominated. Like, there's somebody on Twitter, I forget which account it is, but it says, how badly did we get beaten? And it's like the net success rates, and it's a bar chart across the all FBS, right? So it said like the team that wins versus the team that loses, and like obviously the x-axis at 0 is going to be like the team that loses, or that's like 0. But Georgia Tech was the last team negative, as in Miami outperformed them by a large percentage in this game in every single way that anybody would think to measure football, except we had 5 turnovers and then we gave up that crap at the end of the game.
So just to finish my point about his truthfulness in this situation. So if you take his word for why he did not intervene, or he didn't even explain why he did not intervene, he just said he didn't, he just let it go. Correct. But then I thought, okay, if I'm not going to believe him, it's that he is choosing this to be less egregious than I froze and I didn't think of it. And because that's where I started to go, the more I listened to him, that I'm thinking him not being the greatest in the area of tactician, that did he not think we need to kneel the ball?
I mean, maybe. And also I think that there's a measure of, if I stop talking about it, then people will forget about it. Like his interviews on Monday morning with Joe Rose, like on the flagship station down here, are usually 15 to 18 to 22 minutes. It was 7.5 minutes this week, and he came on, and the very first thing he said, "Look, Joe, hey, it was a really tough one. We should have kneeled the ball, made the wrong decision. It happens, and let's move on." Trying to kind of direct the interview from the interviewee's seat, and to his credit, Joe Rose was like, actually, Coach, we're going to stay here. I got a couple follow-ups for you. He was like, yeah, it is what it is. We're going to move on. He's like, tough. Coach, I know it's tough sometimes, but got another follow-up for you. He was like, no, I'm going to ask these questions that need asking. But yeah, he was very, I think with everything, he was very, Cristobal was very, I want to stop speaking now, and hopefully then people will forget about this or move on or not think about it anymore. I believe that was kind of that. But I mean, to your point, maybe it did not cross his mind to take a knee. And and there's all kinds of people, even friends of mine that I was talking to in the press box the other night. And everybody's talking about, okay, Miami has not taken a knee to end a game yet this year in any of the previous 4 games. You know the difference, morons, with that?
I know what you're going to say, because I heard, I don't know how many people say this. And I'm like, it's not the same.
Miami was up
42-7. You do whatever you want.
Right. You're running 3rd string running backs. You're running your freshman 5th string running back.
You know what I mean? Miami of Ohio by 5 touchdowns. Throw the ball straight up in the air. Do whatever you want. It doesn't matter.
This is not analogous. This is not the same at all. Even the Texas A&M game. Now that one, okay, you can say that was 15, a ranked team, or a very talented team in your own building. Maybe, okay, you take the knee. But these other, You're blowing the doors off of these other also
Yeah.
ran teams. 5 and 6 touchdown margins. What are we talking? Oh, well, there's
No,
what are we talking about with that?
not the same. No.
Like, it's not at all the same. And to try to make them analogous, like, I mean, look, I know everybody is not taking, logic classes or things like that, or have not really exercised their brains recently. But like, I swear, touch grass, read a book, do something. But like saying that, like what happened against Georgia Tech by not taking an E and not taking an E in any of the other games this year when Miami was up by at least 2 touchdowns, they're not equatable. Like they're just absolutely not. But whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a loss on the record. Mario Cristobal still has not had a home ACC win in his tenure as Miami's head coach, because we won the opener at home, last year, and that was the HBCU game, and then lost to Middle Tennessee and all the rest of the home games as well. You saw all the ACC games. So yeah, as long as he's been our coach, we have not won a game at home at Hard Rock against an ACC team. And yeah, this goes 11 consecutive games ever since 2016 against Georgia Tech that Miami is winless coming off of a bye week / extended break. So yeah, things are great. Yeah, that's how we feel. And like, there are people saying, like, I'm always negative and things like that. Hey, if that's your read on it, I'll be that. Fine. I think of myself as pragmatic, but like, I'm definitely going to err on the side of pessimism right now, because that is something that is so egregious an error that it makes me question everything about. I mean, it makes me question everything about Mario Cristobal as head coach. Sorry, let me finish that. But also, we all knew what we were getting. We're getting a program building, talent acquisition master recruiter, right? Who has some questionable, X's and O's decisions in terms of coordinators and also game operations. This is infinitely worse in terms of game ops than, like, I remember last year when we were always talking about Mario taking a timeout early in the first and or third quarters. I would love to go back to nitpicking that for game ops than this, because that decision and that failure completely and totally, starting at the head with Mario Cristobal, has changed the trajectory of the season from a results standpoint. And that is nay on inexcusable.
Yes, because again, even though you bring a good case concerning the timeouts, if we had Mario Cristobal and his staff right here, maybe they could give us some level of insight into some type of logic or thought process that would defend their use of timeouts, that we could be like, okay, maybe we don't completely agree, but we understand. So, but this is a head coach who you have the responsibility to your team to eliminate, if at all possible, all chances of losing if you're in that position. And he failed to do that.
Absolutely. And again, it was a direct correlation between you do this and losing. And pretty terrible. But regardless of that, onward we go. As you see the helmets over Mark's shoulder there, we travel to Chapel Hill to play a North Carolina team that has beaten us, 4 out of 5, 5 out of 6, and 3 in a row. So a yeoman's task going up Chapel Hill, as it were.
And I will say two last things. One would be, it's justified in terms of the result in this way, that if he makes that poor decision 90 some percent of the time, you still win the game, because Georgia Tech doesn't go 74 yards in 22 seconds and you still come out of it being like, thinking football fans like, okay, they made the wrong decision. What were they doing there? But okay, we made it through. But it's still working out, and most people being happy and like, okay, well, they played like crap, but we won, and we move on. But yeah, the other mistakes ensued, and Georgia Tech, Haynes King made 2 throws, especially like you said, the one up to the left sideline over whoever was playing.
Yeah.
Was that Couch playing over
No, I
there?
think I think it was Daryl Porter. Well, maybe
Okay, that's
Porter
right.
was on
You
the other
said that.
side. So it was either Couch or Jaden Davis, probably over there. But yeah, it was. I mean, at the end of the game it was literally Murphy's Law. Anything that could have gone wrong did, and it was just worst case scenario stacked on top of worst case scenario.
Georgia Tech's drives encompassed 1 yard, 6, 22, 49, 3, -1, 75, 26, 6, 13, -5, then the 74. Miami was chewing up 30, 33, 20, 44, 65, 25, 50, 0 because of a pick, 53, 75, -7, kicked a field goal, 52, 7, which
Yeah,
obviously was the fumble.
I
Or
mean,
no,
but
no,
that
that
was
was the throw around play. Yeah.
yeah, which counts technically as a turnover because they recovered it at the end. But like yeah, it was just. I mean, Georgia Tech's longest drive. I mean, so they had 49, ended with the interception, and then they had the 75-yarder of the second possession coming out of halftime after Miami scores. Um, but then, like, yeah, they had the next possession after that, after interception, 26-yard touchdown drive. After that, 6 yards for a field goal. And so, like, yeah, I mean, they driven the field literally once, and then all of a sudden, zip zap zoom. Like, and Miami, I mean, to their credit, moving the ball all over the place. But yeah, you just you didn't finish drives, ended up losing. It sucks.
And we'll move on to North Carolina, although I will mention I don't have an opinion on the fumble, but I will say that because I didn't see it enough times to know, but I did go back and watch the end of the game. And, but in seeing like it live, well, live on tape, and then seeing one replay, my initial reaction was he didn't fumble. Again, I didn't go through the whole process of sitting through the review and everything, but if that is in fact the case, and I truly believe what you're saying because I've heard it elsewhere too, that's horrible. That's that you can't get a play corrected with review. That's why it's in place. You know, they're reviewing 8-yard gains in the second quarter, trying to get those right.
Right.
That you can't get this correct is just that's horrendous. All right. This North Carolina team is, of course, coming off a demolition of Syracuse, in which they put up 30 or 33 real quick and just kind of coasted home 40-7 at home with Drake May at quarterback, of course. And this has long been a series of really great games. I know North Carolina has had the better recently of the series record, but man, I can remember a lot of it was that what year would have that been? 2019, Sam Howell's first or second game. It was really early in his career, pulled off like a 4th and 20. And then that led to a late touchdown. Obviously, they needed that. And yeah, there have been some great games in the series. Last year's game was a really good one as well. Or
Yeah.
yeah, 27-24, I think. Yeah.
Yep. Miami has lost 3 of the last 4 by a field goal each. There was that blowout game that one time that they ran for 8 million yards. And then before that, they won 2, and before that, they lost 2. So, yeah, 6 of the last 8 have gone in the way of the Tar Heels. So this is a big game. Like, you got to bounce back mentally, performance-wise. Like I mean, like that result like puts me immediately in same old sorry ass Miami mode, like mentally. And I need to see the team bounce back. Like I can still be upset and affected by it because like I'm not playing, so whatever. But like yeah, everybody's saying the right things to this point of the week through practice. We had a really great couple of days. Tyler, really bad game, but going to learn from that. Coaches, other players. Matt Lee, who was seen, just beside himself on the sideline as they lose. I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, I mean, it was as clear as day. He's like, hey, people rally around. I'm just very passionate. I put my heart and soul into this and everything, and whatnot. But I need to see it in Chapel Hill. While I was before going operating on faith that okay, what I had seen would be propagated again. I have none of that. That is all gone. So I need to see that. And again, this is a team that has beat Miami 4 times in a row, 6 out of 8. This is a team with an incredible quarterback in Drake May, who's going to be, one of the top 2, maybe 3 players drafted in the NFL draft this year because he's not coming back to college. Bud Elliott from the Cover 3 podcast, noted Florida State guy, by the way, and this is where this comes in, talking about, Drake May is going to cost these first-round safeties for Miami money and everything. And who's calling them first-rounders? I haven't seen it from anybody, right? And this is following, NFL outlets. I mean, hey, let's go 4-1 Lions, by the way. Following plenty of draft people, knowing a lot of draft analysts and everything. I haven't seen anybody talking about Cam Kinchens or James Williams as first-round players. Now, do they have first-round talent? I think James Williams does, especially because of size. I think that, Cam Kinchens might not test that well, but I mean, he's definitely an NFL player, but, Bud's arguing against himself, basically, I think, unless there's something that I'm missing. And hey, maybe there is, but it's just basically, a Florida State guy just taking a dig at Miami people. But regardless of any of that, it's going to take a real effort from everybody to slow down Drake May. And like we did last year, and Tyler threw for 500, but again, you turn the ball over late. I think that was a Jalen Knighton fumble, and then you figure out a way to lose that game. So this is a really, 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 really important game. Whatever happened on Saturday happened. You cannot let Georgia Tech beat you twice. And I fear that is something that can happen because, again, North Carolina has had our number for a good many years. So let me say it again, 6 out of 8. That's the better part of a decade, guys. And it just... This is also going to be narrative that's going to follow you the rest of the season. Because even though it was on the ACC network, the Georgia Tech game was primetime. This Carolina game is national TV in primetime. And then Clemson next week is going to be in primetime either on ABC or the ACC network. That much is already known. We don't know exactly which channel or what it's going to be 7:30 or 8 o'clock. But, you already had one game in primetime. And again, everybody's talking about that. And that is something that will never die. It's like the FIU loss. This is going to follow Miami forever. And then you have this opportunity in front of the nation. Excuse me. And then whatever happens next. So these last week and this week and next, this 3-week section is really going to build the majority of the narrative for the season for Miami. So I really need them to step up. Kylo Ren says Chase Smith over Cloyd and anybody over Couch. KJ Cloyd has actually played really well. I disagree with you on that. To Corey Couch, I think I wish that there was someone that we could rotate him with because he's done well in spots, but the times that it's been negative have been really, really bad. And it's hard because defensive backs are going to get beat. You know what I mean? It's nature of that position. But it just seems that when it happens and he's in coverage, it's extra glaring. So yeah, I don't agree with you on one and I half agree with you on the other, but it's a great comment, I guess.
Thank you, Kyloran. Knox Kane, we appreciate the contribution as well. Big Game Mario is a head recruiting coordinator at best. Fact, this isn't the first time is ridiculous.
Yeah. It's fun. I haven't mentioned him in a while, but my good friend Mike Fay, if you remember that name for a good long time, fellow Kane buddy of mine, he's very outspoken. And so the good Mr. Fay wrote an email to Dan Radakovich this week on Sunday saying, hey, you need to get Mario to hire somebody to be like a logistician, like to help him with these decisions. And actually got a response from the athletic director. Said, hey, I appreciate the passion and the input. We're going to do our best and blah, 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 blah. But, we'll see. And let me also just mention to you guys, number one, I only stayed for Mario's presser because I didn't need to hear anything that the players had to say after that. I was having a conversation with some people in the hallway outside of the press room directly after the game. And you know who walked down there? Dan Radakovich. And you know who also was there in person for the interview session on Monday? Dan Radakovich, the athletic director. And that don't happen every single week. So, like, I'm not saying Mike Fay writing that email precipitated this, because again, I saw him on Saturday before Mike wrote this email. But what I will say, again, is that both on Saturday in that hallway after Mario was in interviews and on Monday for interviews, Dan Radakovich was 10 toes down in that spot. So if you're talking about wanting oversight that was more present, if you want somebody to actually help this program or the overall athletic department move forward, Dan Radakovich, by his presence in there, and every journalist noted it when he came in, all the tweets started flying. Dan Radakovich is here. What? Like, huh? So I'm not saying that anything's going to necessarily change right now, but again, we wanted present, active leadership. I've seen it with my own two eyes, and all the other journalists who were there on Monday saw it as well. So just take that, and hopefully things will go in the right direction, but we'll see.
Leroy, appreciate you being here. Leroy, the Black Ninja Turtle. We are still course 7-5 or 8-4. We are good.
I would rather be great, but yeah, I mean, again, you got an extra one on top of my prediction against Texas A&M, and you gave it right back. So, yeah, 7-5, 8-4. I think you're looking at right in the face when I mean, this time last week, you're expecting to be 5-0, and then the ceiling is much higher. But whatever.
All the games are winnable. None of these teams on the schedule are decidedly better than Miami, if not at all better. Well, Florida State, until proven otherwise, would be considered by most to be better, but certainly a winnable game as well. Light Skin Cage. I feel like this is a massive tipping point for Mario and the program. The season could really wash down the gutters given the tougher than expected schedule ahead. If this season ends around 6 wins, I think Mario will feel the heat.
I think I agree with you that, I mean, yeah, the Georgia Tech game is a massive inflection point. And what happens next will also connect to that. I mean, what's better? We win and are 5-1, and you're like, God darn, we're one play away from 6-0, or Georgia Tech beats you twice. You're now 4-2, 0-2 in conference with Clemson coming to town, who I thought earlier, like, we should be able to handle that. Now, like, spoiler alert, I don't believe that anymore. I don't think that anymore. And yeah, maybe I'm still being emotional and a little overreactive, but like my viewpoint of everything this season has changed. Will Mario feel heat? Yes, and he should. And again, what he did or did not do, whatever you look at it as on Saturday, will follow him the rest of his career, as it should, because it's the most monumental stupidity that I've ever seen. But yeah, I mean, we're going to see what really happens. But even if he does feel the heat, he's like, we're not firing him. So know that as well. You know what I mean? Like, there can be seeds of discontent among the fan base, but like, he's not getting fired. It would have to be, and I'm not making light of the situation at all. I'm not making light of the situation. I'm just drawing the parallel. It would have to be a Mel Tucker for cause kind of a thing for him to be fired at this point. Like, on-field performance being slightly less than what we would want, like, they're not firing Mario and paying him his buyout or anything like that. That's absolutely not going to happen. But again, I do agree with you that if the season goes off the rails, or that again, this is a 6-6, 7-5, and this is what happens following what we saw on Saturday, he will absolutely feel the heat.
Yeah, I saw that comment made by particular people about it being a fireable offense.
It
I
is. It absolutely,
well,
like, it's a fireable offense in terms of job operations. It's not a thing like being fired for cause for sexual assault, allegedly. It's not that, but like in terms of the operation of Congress for your job, it's absolutely fireable. And again, if you look back at the performance that he and the coaching staff had last year, it was fireable in many instances as well. Now, he fired some coordinators and position coaches and things like that, but like that in and of itself, absolutely it's fireable. Absolutely it is.
okay, if that I'm sorry, if that decision in and of itself is fireable, if they're 11-1, is that still a fireable offense? If that is the fireable offense, making that decision in and of
Mhm.
itself, then it's fireable regardless of wins and losses.
Yeah, I mean, in a vacuum, I believe that it is. Now, you can contextualize it and say, well, the season was still really good, and I did other things. I led this team to these other wins, and that would cover for that. But in a vacuum, by itself, that action or inaction or whatever you want to say, that's absolutely fireable. I believe that it is. Now, again, regardless, he will not be fired this year. So it's not as
No.
though that is going to be the thing that incites that action now, but like, is it fireable that your coach does that? I believe so. Maybe I'm being harsh. I don't know. But like I believe that that's a fireable offense, 100%. He's not going to get fired
So,
for it, but I think that it is. You know,
yes. Yeah, what's going to happen or what is in the process of happening by the powers that be versus what we determine as being the decision that should be made, two different things. So
right.
you would have had no issue if Mario Cristobal would have been fired after the game.
Or that, yes.
Okay. All right.
I mean,
Uh
again, based upon that
yes.
single thing, taking out any other context, taking out anything else, that action was fireable.
Okay.
But
The
there's more to
only
the picture.
part of me that agrees with that is that the stakes are high for these head coaches, meaning you make $8 million a year. Well, then your mistakes
Mm-hmm.
are going to cost you. With the benefit of having this much power and being one in a position of about 15 people in America,
Mm-hmm.
that you're in one of those programs and you make that kind of money, then hey, you need to take the heat and you need to be held accountable for stupid, bad mistakes and decisions. However, I posted this actually concerning another coaching situation and other comments that were being made about another coach, and basically said it is possible and it's actually the norm that highly successful people aren't good at every aspect of their jobs.
Fact.
They just know how to manage those blind spots, either provide supplements, people that are complementary in those areas to help them, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case might be, and then obviously
Mm-hmm.
drive their strengths and be humble enough and aware enough to protect their weaknesses and supplement them in some way.
Now he's covered some of that because I mean Lance Guidry is doing an incredible job as defensive coordinator. Shannon Dawson, for the most part, is doing a great job as offensive coordinator, but still needs help with game operations assistance. So, that is a blind spot that still needs a little bit of coverage. But yeah.
This I can agree with. Knox Kane 94 says the Middle Tennessee State game in 5-7 was strike one. History of taking a knee is definitely strike two.
I agree with that, but I think that again, if you look at it from the viewpoint that I took and go back and watch the videos, is last year was year zero, so everything like is kind of washed away with that. Like we knew it was not going to be what it was. So even Middle Tennessee State, even 5-7, not being a strike on the record because hey, again, this wasn't just fixtures and light bulbs. This was a full scale to the ground teardown in Mario Cristobal's eyes and action with this program. So like I get what you're saying and everything, and I agree. However, like in the viewpoint of like the overall Cristobal tenure, I this is still maybe this is like in Catholic League baseball in Detroit, you start with a 1-1 count. So like if you take a first pitch fastball down the middle, all of a sudden you got 2 strikes. Maybe this is like that, where it's just like even though he came in with 0 strikes from last year because we're not counting them. Hey, you're playing Catholic League ball. It's a fastball down the middle. Okay, all of a sudden now it's 1-2. Like swing the bat, make something happen. Maybe it's like that, but I don't even think so because, like, again, he's like, we're not pushing him out. We're not going to do any of that. He's going to get the entirety of his contract and probably an extension. So this is just something that, like, we're going to have to he's going to have to have on his record. And, again, the focus, on the team has to be to move forward to North Carolina. But it doesn't feel great, guys. And I think that we're all in that same mindset or that same space where it's like, yeah, it doesn't feel great right now.
Or I'll put it this way. If you take the very best coaches of the last 15, 20 years and beyond in college football, I can't think of any of them committing a gaffe like this. Not that they didn't make mistakes. They're not perfect, didn't have their teams get blown out in big situations, but it was generally because the other team was just better and they had a bad day. They got out coached, whatever, but legitimately got out coached. Like they still put together a decent game plan, but they just got out coached by somebody who also was really good at what they do. This is kind of hard to navigate in that, again, people that are this good at what they do generally, or not just generally, decidedly almost never do something this egregiously wrong. So it's hard to compensate that with, is he going to continue to build a great program, be this great head coach? Because we've not seen that out of any other great head coaches. You don't see Pete Carroll doing that, or Urban Meyer, or Nick Saban, or fill in the blank. But if he is in fact able to do both, and that's why I say it's not a fireable offense in my estimation, that if he's still building a great program, recruiting great, they're winning all their other games. Let's say they go 9-3 this year. Then next year's a trip to the ACC championship, and there's significant steps in the right direction, but he still has this back here that he screwed up.
That's still a big blemish and everything. But I was smiling because, to your point, talking to several journalists, including some recruiting writers, there were a couple parents in the recruiting section who echoed that and said, hey, something like this doesn't happen at insert school here. Like, and there were some big name schools that were floated from that. So like even if everything else goes in your scenario, 9-3 this year, even 10-2 this year, right? 10-2 next year or whatever, ACC championship appearance, blah, blah, blah. Even if everything else in that trajectory happens, this is still a big negative. And I think the negative of it gets magnified even more because, like, there was no need for this, right? And look at what we achieved, and what much more could we have achieved if not for this gigantic, monumental, all-timer of a mess up.
Absolutely. I do concur with all of that as well. Folks, we appreciate you being here. We do this each and every Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time. Keep that bell turned on for the notifications just in case we need to change the schedule for whatever reason. Cam is here breaking down Miami football with us. And we've got a good crowd in here. So folks, make it on back next week. Bring more with you. And spread the word on social media. Let's grow this beyond what we typically do. As this season will continue to play out. We'll follow the drama.
Yeah, no, we will. And sorry, I was just looking at some Bryce Harper stats from the last 2 playoffs against the Braves. And
which I'm guessing were horrible.
No, we're like really.
We're monstrous. I've not been paying attention the last couple of years.
17 times reached base in 24 AB or 24 plate appearances, and even more crooked numbers on top. Yeah, exactly. But let's end on a positive note for the Miami Hurricanes, because we had the epitome of the Mario Cristobal experience trademark this weekend. A horrible, terrible, no good, very bad blunder, gaffe, coaching operations error to lose a game that you otherwise should have won, followed by a top 100 recruit committing to Miami the very next day. Turn that up for Nye Carr, wide receiver from Colquitt County in Georgia, previously committed to the University of Georgia, who's being, pursued by everybody and their mama, has 102 catches for 2,000 yards and 23 touchdowns in his first 2 varsity seasons. Star wide receiver. He's quick. He's fast. He does everything that you need to do. Inside, outside receiver who can hit all 3 levels of the defense. That's like near, intermediate, and far. 5'10", 5'11". So, I mean, he could be, he's not like the biggest person, but speed kills, and he's a dynamic playmaker. So you beat a lot of big time programs for him. This is a guy who was already committed to Miami, but went public with it on Sunday. This is what I was saying when I quoted that tweet from the recruiting department person and said, "Oh, that's still happening," because I was unsure if that was still going to happen. But Nye Carr had already done interviews with all of the major outlets, as well as a local journalist in Georgia, having done an almost hour-long podcast with him in the weight room at Colquitt County before the weekend. So, like, this is a thing that was known, in recruiting circles. This is a thing that was expected. But, getting a player of his caliber is always a good thing for the University of Miami. In the 24/7 Sports Composite, he is 9th in the state of Georgia, 11th overall wide receiver, and number 53, so just outside the top 50, but still very, very high caliber player who is committed to the U. So when you add him to this class already, that's a really big get. You're not going to stop your pursuit of Jeremiah Smith, even though you have JoJo Trader and Chance Robinson already in this class with Nye Carr. So you have 3 really, really, really top-end receivers. Getting Jeremiah Smith would be the cherry on top, obviously, and we'll see, we'll see where that goes. Sorry, I started reading this comment from Slim Shady Canes. Will Cam stay consistent and say Nick Saban should be fired for doing the same thing on Saturday? Only difference is the back didn't fumble. I mean, again, in a vacuum, I think I've been very clear on this point. In a vacuum, that choice and decision is a fireable offense. I'm not saying that the coach is going to be fired, but evaluating that choice in that moment is fireable. I'm consistent on that point. And also consistent on the point that, like, it is not an error to the level where that singular point is going to be the thing that ends up getting someone fired. You know what I mean? Like, to Mark's point, if you have that choice as a fireable offense, right? But you keep winning, you keep recruiting, you keep doing all the things with, your APR, with your community service, you have all those other metrics and things around, right? The scales will balance out. But like in a vacuum, that choice in and of itself is fireable. It's less fireable in this case of Nick Saban that I missed because the running back didn't fumble. And technically, Donald Chaney didn't either, and the ACC crew messed that up. But the result of the play was called as such. So will I stay consistent? Yes. In a vacuum, that choice by any coach, regardless of the name that you put on it, is fireable. Now, whatever else happens in the scenario with them being fired or not is a different conversation. But that choice in a vacuum, singularly evaluating that singular thing, is fireable. I've been consistent on that point. I will stay consistent on that point. And thank you for asking the question and holding me accountable for consistency.
Appreciate y'all being here at the Voice of College Football. Make it on back here next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications to know when we go live. Check out State of the U with their North Carolina preview and prep.
Yeah, we got plenty of stuff up there, obviously, from the last week because of that. But we have ACC power rankings up, the Florida College football power rankings, and plenty of other stuff. So, when I see several national columnists quoting our content and pushing it out and everything and, opining on it, that cements and elevates what I've been telling you for a long time. StateOfTheU.com, the leaders in Miami Hurricanes commentary and analysis. People see what we say, then they go and they do things. And again, all these other websites with all these other people who used to be at State of the U are still creating content that started as my intellectual property. I don't write all of it, but trust me, I've been doing this for a long time, and a lot of the stuff that you consume started right up here in this very noggin. So if you want to go to the original source, where it started, the OG, triple OG website, stateoftheu.com, always open 24/7, 365, talking about these Canes. Underwood Sports on Twitter, also at the State of the U, because, we're on there as well. And also on Facebook at the State of the U. So go on over there and fan with us in any and all of those places as we continue to push forward, hopefully turn this corner, and like Mark's quarter zip there can go and take advantage of and beat the North Carolina Tar Heels and that Carolina Blue on this Saturday evening.
Folks, join us right here for post game after the game. Join Cam and State of the U all week. Cam, appreciate you making this happen.
Anytime, bro. I'll see you next week.